Reasons why United States invaded Guam in 1898 and the Philippines in 1899. The United States has invaded the Philippines in 1899 and Guam in 1898 for various reasons. They were both colonies of Spain before being conquered by United States. The United States invaded them because they were a source of wealth for the U.S. and it was a part of their manifest destiny. They also felt that they needed to protect their interests from European countries who were trying to take over them. The U.S. invasion on Philippines was also partly due to their fear of the rising power of Russia, which wanted to expand its empire into Asia. The U.S. invasion on Guam was mainly due to the desire to have a naval base in the Pacific Ocean and protect American commercial interests there. In the end, the U.S. decided to maintain control of the Philippines for their international relations and interests. The relationship between America and Spain in 1898 changed greatly, with Spain losing its claim on Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Guam to America. Spain also lost most of their colonies in what became known as the Spanish-American War. From this point on, America began to grow their sphere of influence in the Pacific. The U.S. took control of Guam and Puerto Rico and eventually the Philippines after World War II. After gaining control of the Philippines in 1942, America began to build and develop infrastructure. They also encouraged industrialization, which is evident by the amount of factories throughout the island. America helped build up a largely agricultural economy into an industrialized one. This led to faster economic growth for the Philippines as well as a more educated population with more job opportunities. The American occupation was an important social reformation in the Philippines. In addition to the industrialization, America also brought modernization. American businessmen introduced advanced technology and new ideas such as life insurance and social security systems, which are still present today. Philippines before World War II, 1920s–1942, the Philippines had a largely agricultural economy for most of its history. The country was one of the first in Asia to be integrated into the global economy, beginning with trade with China and Japan. By 1902, there were more than 100 American companies operating in the Philippines, and by 1913, U.S. investments in Philippine businesses amounted to $6 million. The Philippines had a large foreign labor force, many of them Chinese coolies who came from Fujian province, and a large domestic population of peasants and workers. In 1941, the Philippine Islands were invaded by Japanese forces just before the outbreak of World War II. The Philippine-American War, 1942–1945, was conducted concurrently with the Pacific theater of World War II. A 3-month period from February to April 1945 saw intense fighting between Japanese Imperial Army and combined American and Philippine Commonwealth military forces in the central Philippines. After the war, a U.S.-dominated Joint Filipino-American Commission established a new constitution for the country, 1945. What were some major aftermaths from the Philippine-American War? The Philippine-American War was the result of the Spanish-American War. The Treaty of Paris in 1898 brought about a change in the Philippines, which led to an armed conflict between American and Filipino forces. The Philippine-American War is one of the most significant events that have happened in history. It was a war between two nations that were both colonized by Spain, America, and the Philippines. The war is also known as the Forgotten War because it has been overshadowed by other conflicts such as World War I and World War II. The aftermaths of this war are numerous and they include 1. The U.S. occupation of the Philippines during 1898 to 1902. 2. The establishment of American colonial government in 1901. 3. The creation of a new statehood for the Philippines in 1946. The occupation of the Philippines by America started with a declaration of war, which was officially done in 1899. After 4 years and 3 months, a peace treaty was signed with Spain. The peace treaty ended the Spanish-American War that involved America and Spain both fighting for control over Cuba. This led to America becoming the new power in the Americas. In 1899, America declared war on Spain because they were fighting for control over Cuba. The United States has managed to be a leading superpower or hegemon for the last 2 centuries. A hegemon is not just a single country that dominates the world. A hegemon is defined as a power that seeks to dominate or control other states and thereby indirectly dominate or control the international system. In terms of military power, America has been able to be dominant for the last century and a half because of the increase in technology and a robust economy. Do we know all about the Philippine-American War today? The Philippine-American War is not just an event in history, but it is also a part of our present day. The war was fought between the United States and the Philippine Republic, which was a colony of Spain at that time. It lasted from 1898 until 1902, with the Treaty of Paris ending it in favor to the U.S. Most Filipinos are unaware of its importance to their country's history. For the United States, it was a pivotal event in the course of international relations. The Philippines became an American colony and, because of this, the conflict is also known as the Spanish-American War. The Philippine-American War began with an uprising in which some Filipinos rebelled against Spanish rule. In response, the Spanish government sent a squadron of warships to Manila. On April 30, 1898, this American army clashed with the Spaniards and Filipinos in Manila Bay, at the close of which Spain yielded control of its colony to America. Following a brief period of occupation, the United States formally established the Philippine Islands as an independent nation on July 4, 1902. A tenuous peace in 1900 was shattered by a revolt against American authority in 1906. The United States then assumed complete control over the Philippines, which have been a self-governing territory since 1935. The Spanish-American War was a main cause of the Philippine-American War. The United States saw this battle as an opportunity to take control of the countries in Central and South America and gain more power in drug trafficking routes. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button.